Israel-Colombia Free Trade Agreement and Business Opportunities. Organized with the Embassy of Colombia in Israel, the Foreign Trade Administration at the Ministry of Economy and Industry, together with the Manufacturers Association of Israel, the Federation of Israeli Chambers of Commerce, and the Israel-Latin America Chamber of Commerce. This free trade agreement between Israel and Colombia was signed in 2013 and entered into force on August 11, 2020, opening up to Israeli companies one of the most interesting economies with potential for growth among Latin American countries. With your permission, I would like to dedicate just a few words on our organization. The Israel Export and International Cooperation Institute is a non-profit, business-minded, and a business-driven organization which promotes Israeli products, cutting-edge technologies, and innovative solutions in various sectors. Combined with business expertise, professional industrial knowledge, and a wide worldwide networking, we assist in paving the way to successful business opportunities. And now, to open this webinar, I have the honor to invite the Ambassador of Colombia to Israel, Her Excellency Mrs. Margarita Eliana Manjarez Herrera. Please, Ambassador.
Thank you, Sabine. Good afternoon to everybody. Good morning in Colombia. I am honored to welcome all to this virtual event, Israel-Colombia Free Trade Agreement, Business Opportunities. I would like to thank the institutions that together with the Embassy of Colombia in Israel co-organized this important meeting. The Israel Export Institute, the Foreign Trade Administration at the Ministry of Economy and Industry, the Manufacturers Association of Israel, the Federation of Israeli Chambers of Commerce, the Israel-Latin America Chambers of Commerce, and of course, my special greetings to Mrs. Sabine Segal, Deputy Director General for International Business Affairs in the Israeli Export Institute, who, as she already said, would be our moderator this afternoon. Thanks, Sabine. As all you know, last August 11th, we witnessed the fulfillment of a long process that resulted in the entry into force of the free trade agreement between Colombia and Israel. Back in March 2012, affirming our historical and strategical partnerships, we start to negotiate a last generation agreement that today is a reality and give us new opportunities in trade, investments, and innovation. Our newly implemented FTA is considered as a fourth generation one, rules in various disciplines such as goods, services, investments, public purchases, among others. Liberalization in e-commerce, IT, and financial services were included in Sella's chapter, stating a relevant potential in bilateral exchange. Additionally, the agreement's implementation must be facilitated through the performing of public cooperation projects in agri-tech, telecommunications, health, innovation, biotechnology, and green tech. Colombia is engaged to diversify its export basket to the world, and we are convinced that this agreement with Israel will contribute to this goal. Nowadays, sales to Israeli market reach almost $400 million per year, being called the largest product by far. So it is necessary to expand our offer, and the FTA opens opportunities in agribusiness, metal mechanics, chemicals, 4.0 industries, textiles, clothing, and so on. So why Colombia represents advantages? In the crossroads of the Americas, Colombia is located between the north and the south of the continent, with more than 16 free trade agreements in force and memberships in regional trade mechanisms like the Pacific Alliance, of which Israel is observer since 2012. This positions Colombia as a unique hub and a platform for business and investments in the region. Colombia has access to more than 60 countries with more than 1,500 million consumers through its networks of agreements. Our legal certainty guarantees also to investors from all over the world safety and conditions to settle their projects and capitals in the country. Several Israeli companies are already based in Colombia, investing and promoting bilateral exchange. The FTA aims to increment those flows already located in areas that I already mentioned, like agribusiness, cybersecurity, tourism. In the other hand, in the scope of this FTA, we couldn't miss to focus on innovation and business. Colombia has an alive and a very consolidated business sector with a modern innovation ecosystem ready to explore joint initiatives with Israeli partners. The project to open an innovation office in Israel was a response to our interest to consolidate a strategic and productive alliance among startups, large companies, incubators, accelerators, and public authorities in both countries. We hope this is going to happen soon. As we all know, the pandemic disrupted economic trends all over the world, and Colombia was not an exception. Until the last year, we record some of the best indicators in the region. Colombia GDP grew by 3.3% in 2019, even doubling the rate of most of the other economies in Latin America. In 2021, we expect to recover some of the good path and reach 4% GDP, a growth projected by the International Monetary Fund. I encourage all of the Israeli business people to discover the opportunities that we offer as a stable, open, and vigorous economy and society. We are facing an historical moment that requires our joint work and commitment also in order to make the implementation of this agreement a success story. So in our program today, we will have Mr. Daniel Kolbar, already introduced, the Director of Bilateral Trade Agreement at the Ministry of Economy and Industry for Israel. He will give a more detailed explanation of the FTA. Juan Esteban Sanchez is our Director for Colombia, is the Colombia Government Business Promotion Agency, and he will explain why Colombia gives the opportunities in the light of this new agreement. And finally, Nir Sella, the Commercial Attaché of Israel in Colombia, who will talk about business opportunities and exports to our country. We will finish opening the space for questions by the participants, and a short film will follow after my talk. So I just want to say thank you again for joining us today, and I hope this is going to be one and maybe only the first event to show you all the advantages of this excellent agreement that we need to implement. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador. And indeed, we do hope that this is the first webinar in a long series of many others in the future. And now, in order to get into the right atmosphere, we have here a short film on Colombia prepared by Prop Colombia. Please.
Passion. That our businesses will stop at nothing. That our land will continue flourishing, producing exciting flavors, quality raw materials, and products that improve lives. Today, more than ever, Colombians are creative, innovative entrepreneurs. Today, we assure the world that it can keep believing, investing, trusting, and seeing Colombia as a great ally, as a country that keeps moving forward and holds its doors wide open to welcome you back. We'll meet again soon.
And for the overview of the Israel-Colombia Free Trade Agreement, I invite Mr. Daniel Kolbar, Director of Bilateral Trade Agreement at the Foreign Trade Administration at the Ministry of Economy and Industry, to share with us the most significant clauses of the agreement. Please, Daniel.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sabine. Let me just share the screen here, and then we're going to start. First, I want to join as well my colleagues in congratulating all the organizers and thanking the organizers for this webinar. It is very important, and we are always excited to be in touch with the companies and explain a little bit about what we do. Of course, even more importantly, get feedback and questions, which I hope that we will have, and I hope that we'll be able to answer. So my name is Daniel. Just a little bit about myself. I've been here at the ministry for 10 years, always looking at Latin America, among other regions as well. But it's always been a pleasure. And I want to start with looking at the timeline for the Colombia-Israel FTA. As you can see in the first slide on the bottom left, we started the first round of negotiations in March 2012. And the reason I show this is that you can see that how sometimes processes can take time, and it's rarely the case that someone is lucky to start the process from the very first phone call. I remember back in 2011 with the Colombian vice minister back then, going through 5 rounds of negotiations until we concluded the negotiations in June 2013. The photo that you see here was at when Shimon Peres was president, and there was a nice ceremony for the conclusion of negotiations. It was later on ratified and eventually entered into force exactly a month ago on August 11th. So we're very excited about that. It did take some time, but the patience is very important. Just a few words about the Foreign Trade Administration, what we actually do, and why we are here as part of the Ministry of Economy and Industry. So mostly trying to increase and diversify Israel's exports and of course manage Israel's trade policy. We also do other things, but the time is short, so I'll continue and talk a little bit about our trade, bilateral trade agreements. As you can see in this map, these are agreements that we have already in force from Canada to the US, Mexico, Panama, of course, Colombia, Mercosur, that includes Brazil, Argentina, Uruguay, and Paraguay. And in Europe, we have the EU and the EFTA states, of course, Turkey. So that's what we have, and Colombia is our latest addition. Very excited about that. Before that was Panama in January this year. We also concluded some negotiations with the 3 countries, but those agreements are not yet in force. And we are ongoing some negotiations, as you can see, mostly in Asia, with the Eurasian Economic Union, that's Russia and Belarus and Kazakhstan, Armenia, and Kyrgyzstan, and China, Vietnam, India, and in Latin America, Guatemala. So just a bit, that was just a bit of an overview. I want to just dive now to the Colombia-Israel FTA. Let's look at some of the highlights of the agreement. What benefit does it actually give to the business sector, to our companies, the exporters and the importers? And that's the reason why we're doing all these agreements. So firstly, interesting to note that for Israel, that's the first bilateral FTA that includes both services and investment. So we have chapters on these subjects, provisions that provide for more transparency and more predictability for trade, for not only for goods, which is what we've had back then until in our bilateral agreements, until our negotiations with Colombia started. We did, of course, have provisions on services in the GATT, so in the multilateral framework, and investment treaties, well, separately, not inside the FTA. That makes a lot of sense to have such a comprehensive agreement with other elements than trade. So we're very happy about that. Of course, we have to keep in mind the competitive advantage for bilateral exports of goods. So there are customs duties that are being eliminated. Most of them, once the agreement entered into force, we'll look into that a bit later, and others gradually, not only for industrial goods, but also for agricultural and processed foods. Rules of origin is something that sounds quite technical. We're not going to go into it, but it is important to have flexible rules of origin. It's important for us and for our exporters in terms of the definition of what counts as an originating product, considering global value chains and so on. So that's a feature of this agreement. Also improved access for government procurement. So Colombian companies wishing to have access to the Israeli government's tenders and bids have a better chances of doing that. So they have, let's say, improved conditions, and so do Israeli companies in Colombia. So that's an important feature as well. Of course, very important is that the agreement provides for a framework for a bilateral dialogue to prevent and resolve any barriers and obstacles to trade. So when we administer the agreement, when we manage it, doing it by our joint committee that will typically meet every year, and its subcommittees, and we have direct contacts between basically our Ministry of Foreign Trade Administration, our counterparts in Colombia, of course, all of our colleagues. That's very important when we sit around the table, come up with any issues that may impede or make it difficult for our private sectors. So we can, with this framework, resolve problems and ideally prevent them as well. So we keep improving and also keep updating or upgrading the agreements as we go. And last but not least, we have mechanisms for dispute settlement, and the ISDS is relevant for investment. So investment in general, it's important for Israeli investment to know that they can have a predictable environment when they invest in Colombia and vice versa. And so that's going back to the first point, where we have such provisions in the agreement. So these are some of the highlights. It's not an exhaustive list. Of course, there are many others, but the time is limited. We have to, in the future, to elaborate a bit more. Now I want to go and talk a little bit more about goods. And that is the movement of goods when the company exports an actual good to Colombia, let's say, or vice versa. So in the agreement, there's a difference between industrial, or it's presented separately, industrial goods and agricultural goods. So that's important to note. And that industrial goods is what we classify in the harmonized system as chapters 25 to 97. And all industrial goods are duty-free as of the entry into force of the agreement, unless they're listed in Annex 2A. So basically what it means is that when we look at that annex, and we see that there are some tariff lines that are included, they could be divided into these categories: G3, G7, G5, G7, G10. And then they, in that case, if they're in the table, they will be gradually eliminated in 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, or 10 years, right? But if they're not on the table, then that means that they are already duty-free. Of course, if anyone has any question regarding a certain product, we're always here for you to assist with that. So that's regarding industrial goods. And there's a link here, of course, the presentation you'll be getting as soon as this is finished, so you can click on and get to all the materials of the agreement and the tables and all the information you need. So when we move into agricultural goods, so that's what we classify in chapters 1 to 24. And these goods, it's a different sort of a list. It's what we call a positive list. So agricultural goods that benefit from preferential customs are the ones that are listed in the annex. In that case, it's Annex 2B. So in other words, if it's not in the table, that means it's not in the agreement, it's excluded, there is no tariff preference. But there are quite a few tariff preferences. And then when we look at the legend for this tariff, we'll see here the tariff reduction categories. That means immediate elimination. So some agricultural products, they have no tariff duties once the agreement entered into force. Others will have different benefits, such as gradual elimination in 3 stages or 5 stages, and so forth. There's a little bit more categories in the agricultural products, but it's written here, so I think there's no need to review each and every one of them. And of course, that also includes the last category, that's where we can find our tariff rate quotas, or quotas that we publish and that importers can apply and basically be able to import a certain good, a certain quantity with the duty-free rate or reduced rate. So that's with regards to products. Let's have a look at a bit of example to be a bit, to try to apply this, what I've just talked about. So if we're looking at exporting, for example, shampoos to Colombia, we have to first locate the tariff line in Colombia. That's 3305.10. And then we have to locate it in the annex. As I said, if it's not in the annex, that means it's already duty-free. But if we find it in the annex, and in that case, we did. This is how the annex looked like. You see the titles there. On the left, Colombia's tariff line, and then the number 3305.10, basically. And the description is shampoos. The base rate is 15, and the tariff reduction category is G5. That means that we take 15%, which is the base rate. So until August 11th, that would have been the customs duties that the Colombian importer would have had to pay if he imported the shampoos originating in Israel, right? But after August 11th, there's already been one reduction. So 15% is down to 12%, right? Basically, because it's 5 equal stages, and each one would be 3%. So we're going to go from 15% to 12%, and then this is a table for you. Shows you how from August 2020, if you look at the line here that's in red, the different categories. So whatever is immediate, that's duty-free. If it was G5, products that are classified as are in category G3, well, they're going to be paying 66.6% of the base rate. G5 would be 80% and so forth, and so forth. G10, 90%. And then we go, the consecutive reductions are always in the 1st of January each year. So you can see, for example, that the G3 would be duty-free on January 1st, 2022, whereas G5 is going to be duty-free on January 1st, 2024. G10 will take a bit longer and will be duty-free in January 2022. So these are, by the way, it's not all the categories. There are like 3 or 4 more categories, but I think with this, one can get the point. So I think this is pretty much it for me at this point. We don't have much time. I'll be happy to take any questions. And on a personal note, I mentioned before, I was 10 years working in Latin America, but now it's soon time for me to move on. And I'll be in about 3 weeks going to Japan, Tokyo. So I just want to say that for all of my Latino friends, it's been a pleasure working together, and I'm sure that there's great potential and much to do to increase the bilateral relations between Israel and Colombia. And we have Nir Adams been working with us here, who's now representing us in Colombia, and we'll be talking shortly thereafter. So we all support you, Nir Adam, and keep doing this good job. Okay, thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Daniel. Great. So thank you, Daniel. And now we will continue with the presentation on why Colombia, the business opportunities in Colombia in the light of the free trade agreement. For that purpose, I invite Mr. Juan Esteban Sanchez, the Director of Israel and India at ProColombia. Please, Juan.
Okay. Hello, Sabine. How are you?
Fine, great. Happy to hear you.
Okay, wonderful. So first of all, I just want to say thank you to Sabine for this invitation. This is the best way just in order just to explain the big opportunities we can have just regarding to the free trade agreement that we have now. Thank you, and hello to the Ambassador Margarita Manjarres, and to Daniel Kolbar as well. And Nir, hello again. So I will just explain some business opportunity with Colombia, just in order, just in a practical way, just to people from Israel to understand that this free trade agreement has really good opportunities in some different ways. So what are the messages I just would like to explain in here? The first one is that in Colombia, we like doing businesses and we are practical. So this is a really good combination. Colombians are the perfect partners for Israel business entrepreneurs. And it's been demonstrated with the example that the ambassador was telling that before, in the way that there are some companies from Israel that are working in Colombia in different fields. This, the third point, is one of the most important in the presentation, is that we want you to import from Colombia, but also we want you to export from Colombia. And this is something that we are working in order just to do the recovery of this COVID situation for our country, is that the way we are not trying just to the companies to replace the productions and the export system they have in the countries, but maybe they can explore through Colombia a kind of commercial expansion to Latin America and North America. Fourth, your technology, knowledge, and experience can help us to improve our productivity. We need to crop more, we need just to export more, and we need more quality in our products. So what Colombia offers? The first, a dynamic and stable economy. As the ambassador was saying, the economy of Colombia has been just growing since the last decade. And we are expecting in the 2021, maybe just to grow 4%. Also, we do have inflation under control. Why? Because the central bank managed that. And we are expecting in 2020, even with this condition right now, is that the inflation is going to be around 3%. Colombia offers multiple development centers. We do have almost 11 cities in our country with more than 1 million people living there. So that means that there is some really good consumption center for it. The second is that we have a growing middle class, and you can see in the right side that the middle class in Colombia in 2020 is over the 30% of the population. Third, we have some opportunities for businesses in a wide range of economic sectors. We are strategically located, and the market can facilitate transaction to business deal in the region. We are trying to convince that the Israeli people can take advantage of the free trade agreement we have, almost 17 trade agreements, including the Israel one. And you can just take advantage, for example, that we are in the Pacific Alliance. That means that with these 17 trade agreements, we can have maybe a market of over 1 billion people in order just to serve from Colombia. Also, we had more than 30 connecting routes. We are talking on shipping, 4 shipping companies with transit that time starting from 23 days. And also we have 8 connecting air routes offered by 7 airlines from Colombia to Israel. Nearshoring option has an alternative? Yes. We want just to do business with Israel, absolutely. But we want just to explore bilateral businesses. So that's why we are just trying to focus on the nearshoring strategy. Why? Because the location, because the labor cost, because the tax regime for foreign investors. And the other is that the industrial and technological infrastructure needed, we have it in Colombia. So you can see here also that Daniel was telling that before, that if we combine the free trade agreement between Israel and the other countries and Colombia and the other countries, we have a really big, good covering of the world map. You know, they just to present the opportunities from Colombia and from Israel to the companies. Export opportunities, okay. The free trade agreement between Colombia and Israel guarantees preferential and permanent relationships. So there is a lot of information in here, but we in ProColombia, we developed an exercise in which we just choose what kind of product from Colombia can combine quality and capacity. We know that even with the free trade agreement, we don't have all the offer in order just to accomplish all the business opportunities that maybe Israel is looking for, importation and even for re-exportation. So in this sense, for example, in agribusiness, we identify these first opportunities for you. You can see here in the chart that, for example, for meat, bovine meat, we used to have a tariff of 56%, and now it's 0. But we have a quota. And this quota, the importers from Israel can just deal with the exporter of Colombia that also have the kosher certification and even with the admissibility of product since 2017. We have opportunities in fresh flowers, also considering that Israel has really good flower production in other countries, in Africa, for example. But for chrysanthemums, for example, or even for ornamentals, we have a change in the tariff from 10% to 0%. And also we have a quota of 250 tons per year. We identify really good opportunities on confectionery. The tariff is from 4% to 0% has changed. Also, we have some really good opportunities on some fruits. Pineapples, guava, mangoes, and mangosteens. The change in the tariff is around between the 25 to 8% to 0%. And also we have a quota in there for 500 tons. Coffee, absolutely. I think in Colombia, in Israel, we have a really good, well-named of our coffee and even for the extracts. So you can see here that the tariff hasn't changed, but we are exploring different system that the free trade agreement is providing to the companies, even for importers to exporters, that even with the tariff that is 0% again, you can have more facilities in order just to import the Colombian coffee in order to process it there in Israel. Also, if you don't know, there is a really good comment in here that the 95% of the cacao that is exported from Colombia is fine flavored cacao. That means that the fine flavored cacao in the world, they just is being present in just the 5% of the countries in the world. And Colombia has a really good quality in cacao. So if anybody wants just maybe just to obtain some benefit from the free trade agreements, the committees that they are helping in order just to obtain the admissibility, maybe you can explore some really good opportunities for a kind of chocolate products for the high level of the segment. We are identifying some really good opportunities in some other products. I would like just to focus here in 2 of them. The first one is that we have household products, for example, for the cleaning, that are changing the tariff between 12% to 0%. And the other one is the last one, is that we are having wooden furniture ready to assemble, that in Colombia, we are doing really good in that. And the tariff is changing between the 100% in some items to 12% and even to 0%. The other thing is that we are serving the Israeli market since 2017 for some really products that can help the pharmaceutical sector in Israel. In this case, it's capsules. The capsules from Colombia, they are high quality ones, and this product is changing from 12% to 0%. The other thing is that in Israel, we have a really good presence in jeanswear and even in swimwear. And also, this is the same situation. Also, there is no change in the tariff because it used to be in 0% tariff. We have really good committees and really good tools in order just to improve the way that maybe we can start exporting more from Colombia to Israel. There is something really good opportunities on orange economy related products and services, and even for the industry 4.0. And I would like just to stop in here just in order just to give a really good signal that audiovisual products and services are being just exported to the industry of soap operas and really TV programs in Israel. Also, you are seeing that in the television in this moment. And talking with Nir, we are just looking for some kind of bilateral business opportunities in agri-tech, fintech, digital health, and cybersecurity. How? Okay, we can just start exploring maybe some exportation and maybe some investment from Israel to Colombia because you are the leader on innovation in the world. But maybe you can have some really good joint venture with Colombian companies that also from the startup environment, they are just looking for really good expansion with really good strategic partners. Some investment opportunities, and this is just for mention it. The free trade agreement can help us in order just to have really good investment opportunity for Israeli companies. And this is the way that we are just trying just to get close the people that produce in Israel in order just to go to Colombia to help really good partners in order to produce with better quality, with better efficiency, for example, in water treatment and all of them for the agriculture business. So we believe that, for example, if we can just convince the Israeli companies in order just to explore business opportunities in fields like new generation information technology, we need that. Specialized software development, agri-tech, food tech, and even the way that you crop fruits and vegetables. We do have really good benefit for these kind of projects. So if you are exporter or you are importer, maybe you can have really good partners in Colombia in order just to expand the production and maybe just to explore some really good export opportunities, Israeli export opportunities from Colombia. Investment opportunities in pharmaceutical products, medical devices, metalworking, and construction materials. And finally, we are working with some really good Israeli companies in order just to improve the logistics and the infrastructure of Colombia in order just to improving the exportation system. Some really good cases, for example, you can see Shikun and Binoy, they are just working in Colombia really hard. They are having really good experiences in there. They are looking for more investment opportunities, and we are working with the embassy and Pro-Colombia in order just to get some more really good opportunities. AgroMe, Adama is expanding the operation in Colombia, and Move It is just working really close to us in order just to explore really good opportunities with good partners in Colombia. Final remarks, okay. The allies you have, okay. All of them, all of us, we are working for you. The Ministry of Economy, the Embassy of Colombia in Israel, even the Embassy of Israel in Colombia, the Israel Export Institute, Pro-Colombia, Impulsa, that is the equal to the Israel Innovation Authority, ICA and IBIMA, that are the sanitary and phytosanitary authorities in Colombia, the Federation of Israel Chamber of Commerce, we are working a lot with them, the Manufacturers Association of Israel, and the Latin American Chamber of Commerce. All of us, we are working with you in order just to create more opportunities between the two countries. Finally, free events. I would like just to tell that in the next months, we would like maybe just to give the information to you in order to participate in something that we call the Americas Business Matchmaking Forum. It's in November. For free, you can just explore really good opportunity with the Colombian exporters. Israel is one of the most important guests this year. The other event is the Colombian Investment Summit that is in October 7th. And you can just have one-to-one meetings with Colombian producers, startups, and investment companies. Finally, initial sources that you can explore. If you want just to explore maybe some products in Colombia, you can go to the B2B marketplace that we just created this year, in order just for free, just get close to the export environment in Colombia. You can have even information for investment purposes in the investingcolombia.com page. And also the Embassy of Colombia through the webpage they have, in order just to give the information and all the support for all the kind of needed you need, for example, to do business with us. Thank you very much.
Sabine, can we continue to the next part?
Okay, great. So thank you, Juan. And now for our next presentation, business opportunities for the Israeli business community, exports to Colombia and additional topics. I invite Mr. Nir Adam, our commercial attaché, head of Israel's economic and trade mission to Colombia. Please, Nir.
Shalom lekulam, good afternoon, buenas tardes y buenos días. My name is Nir Adam Sella. I'm the Economic and Trade Attaché here in Colombia, representing the Ministry of Economy and Industry. And I'll share my presentation and start. So in this presentation, I will tell you just a little bit about what we do here at Israel's Economic Mission to Colombia. And I will focus a little bit more on the side of the exporters. So even if you're not an exporter, you'll have some more additional information that can be relevant, but we'll focus on exports from Israel to Colombia. So why choose Colombia? Now I'm looking from the side of the exporters. We looked before in a more general way. First of all, Colombia is a market. It's the third largest economy in South America, the fourth in Latin America, and closing the gap from Argentina. So this is a very interesting market of more than 50 million inhabitants. Juan Esteban already mentioned the steady growth. So we saw in the recent years a steady and impressive growth, and also a much larger middle class in Colombia. We see stability, and we can say that the Colombian government is business friendly and is working closely in order to make Colombia business friendly and friendly for foreign companies coming to do business. We can also mention that the peace agreement internally in Colombia was achieved a few years ago, and one of the outcomes of this was more budgets to development of rural areas, infrastructure, and many other things. So Colombia is a rather peaceful place to do business in, and this is something to also take into account. And as you saw, the Colombian government is supporting innovation. There is a very impressive scheme for digital transformation that is very relevant for Israeli companies. And in general, the Colombian economy, both the private sector and the government are looking for technologies. So this is part of what makes Colombia attractive for Israeli exporters mainly, and also for the Israeli business community at large. So why Israeli companies in Colombia? Why now? So first of all, I mean, needless to say, we already discussed, and the reason we met today is because of the free trade agreement. What is the free trade agreement for exporters? If you export goods, usually it will make your goods more attractive. It will make your goods more competitive in the Colombian market. We'll touch other topics very soon. The second point is there are a lot of challenges here in Colombia, and this is the chance to connect to them. So, I mean, I can just name a few of them. Agriculture and the agri-tech. The entire world now is battling to produce more and to have more precise agriculture, and also following that, the post-harvest and the logistics. So agriculture is the main sector in Colombia, and many of the Israeli companies that are already exporting to Colombia are focused on this area. So it continues to be both a challenge and an opportunity for Israeli companies. The second is water. Water is, I mean, Colombia is a country that is very rich in water. However, also some regions in Colombia are almost desert areas like La Guajira, but also others. And additional areas have issues with water. Even if there is water and almost all year round, it doesn't mean that the water doesn't mean to be treated. And many of the rivers and lakes in Colombia are now contaminated with wastewater. And recycling of water is an issue, but also making sure that there is water all year round. Also with climate change is an important issue in Colombia as an agricultural country, and also in general. Smart cities and HLS. We connect here to Colombian plans and to Colombian challenges in these areas, bringing smart cities smart cities technologies and improving situation in many of Colombia's cities was done with Israeli technologies and continues to be an opportunity for Israeli companies, and also in the HLS realm where Israel has a very wide offering. Industry 4.0. Colombia is, as you saw, is also an industrial country, and making Colombian industry more attractive, making Colombian exports eventually more competitive also is done with Israeli technologies. Digitalization is something that is going across government and private sector, and there are many opportunities there. Advanced manufacturing connects to the same theme. I didn't mention here cyber, but also I will go back to it. Health. I mean, we are still in the COVID time. So of course, medical equipment is a strong offering by Israel. Also digital health, clearly. But now also COVID-related solutions are very, very relevant for Colombia these days for the challenges. I think many of you are aware that the situation of COVID in Colombia has been well managed, but quite complicated. And we've just finished over 5 months of quarantine here in Colombia, and controlling COVID and bringing COVID-related solutions is very relevant. Additional things that we can consider is services, including software. As Daniel mentioned, this is actually the first free trade agreement that Israel has that contains a services chapter in force. And this is an interesting feature. Liberalization in services is going to be part of what's going on with the trade between the countries. There is a lot. I mean, we can see the chunk of Israeli exports in services growing every year, and the same thing goes in Colombia. So it's going to be a real opportunity. For example, software is considered a service, but many other things as well, like design, professional services, business services, and others. Investment protection. So also many Israeli companies may consider Colombia as their hub in Latin America, and it's also connected to the free trade agreement, as we also have an investment chapter in the free trade agreement. And the access to public procurement. We already have Israeli companies that are looking into tenders and looking into the opportunities in public procurement here in Colombia. I mean, of course, we can't make the picture too rosy. And when we talk to exporters, they also discuss the distance, sometimes the language barrier. Finding the right partner is also part of the challenge, and sometimes regulation, long processes and decision making, and also the adjustment of product to market. But in fact, I think that in many things, we as an infrastructure and also as a government can assist. And in fact, we do that. And we try to make the landing in Colombia a bit more friendly for the interested companies. So now I will talk a bit about what we do in the Israeli economic mission to Colombia, and what have we done lately. I mean, first thing that we did is move to virtual. All of our activities are now virtual. We focused on the relevant areas of interest, such as the life science, agriculture, HLS, and cybersecurity, all the challenges that are very relevant for this period, also here in Colombia. Overall, we made over 120 business connections since March 2020. Over 100 Israeli companies participated in virtual business activities that we administered together with our partners. And we had direct contact with over 30 Colombian target companies to offer Israeli solutions. Last but not least, we shared knowledge and experience from Israel to Colombia, mainly in health, but also in other areas. And I think many of the Israeli solutions are very relevant for the challenges that the world is facing in general, and also Colombia. And we work closely with our partners. I will mention just a few: the Israeli Export Institute, and that created joint activities with us, the Israeli Association of Chambers of Commerce, the Manufacturers Association, the embassy staff here in the embassy in Bogota, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Israeli Innovation Authority, and many other partners in Colombia, including ProColombia that just gave the pitch before me, and the Embassy of Colombia in Israel. So working together is definitely the way we do it. And what can we do for you? As any other economic mission, we find business counterparts for you, distributors, resellers, representatives, other partners here in Colombia. We scout for opportunities. We're very active also on social media and on our blog. And we post for business opportunities for Israeli companies here in Colombia. We organize sectorial meeting days. We give access to exhibition and delegations that are now virtual. For example, this week we have AgroFuturo here in Colombia with 10 Israeli companies. Next week we have HLS and Cyber. We provide information regulatory processes, market analysis for the relevant Israeli companies. We do the follow-up, and we have the legs here on the ground, which is in many ways very important. And we also do tailor-made meetings. So I call anybody that is interested in being in touch with us to write me in my personal email and be in touch. So I will end my presentation here, and I'll be happy to continue being in touch with any Israeli company interested. Thank you.
Thank you, Nir. And now, after having heard all the highlights of the agreement and some of the opportunities that it offers, we wish to continue and proceed with the Q&A session. I see that there was a question asked for Daniel. Did you see it, Daniel?
Yes. I think there was a question regarding the rules of origin. What does it mean, flexible rules of origin, which is something I mentioned on one of the slides. So rules of origin are basically the rules that determine when a product is considered originating or not. So was it produced in Israel? Is it entitled to a tariff preference on the export for one party to the other party? So some agreements have very specific rules that vary from product to product. So for one product, it will be one rule, and another product, it will be a different rule, and it's getting quite complex. So in this agreement, basically, there are rules that allow for the exporters to import raw materials and make the processing necessary in order for it to become an originating product. And the reason it's flexible is that it can either be a change of 4 digits, an HS code, so it's a heading. If you import the raw materials, you do certain process on it, and then it is enough to change the heading from 4-digit level, then your product will be considered originating. And if that's not the case, and that means you are importing raw material, you're processing it, but it's still on the export, it's still going to be the same classification, then you do have another possibility, which is based on the ex-works price of the product. So in other words, you look at the value of the non-originating materials, so the raw materials that are not manufactured in Israel, or they're not from Israel yet to import them. Then you look at the ex-works price, so the price that you are selling the product basically. And if the non-originating products are not exceeding 50% of the ex-works price, and then in that case also your product will be considered originating. So these are basically the two sets of rules that are used either or. But so for some products, I should add, there are specific rules. So we do have a list of product-specific rules and for products such as textiles and others. So it's all in the agreement. So I do recommend, if anyone's not sure, to have a look at the agreement or to send us a more specific question. We'll be happy to help with that. Thank you.
Great. Daniel, I see that there are more questions for you. So if you see the second one on software tax exemption, if you can please refer to that one as well. And there is one on the agreement, whether it's imports regulations process, importer licenses. And I believe that either you or Juan could relate to those questions and give the right answers.
Right, so I'll try to answer the first question about software. So as you know, I focus in my presentation on trading goods because the agreement does eliminate the import duty. The import duty is what's basically protecting the domestic industry and what sets it apart from an important product. So basically, you're leveling out the terms for the let's say the Colombian exporter and the Israeli manufacturer, in the case of the Israeli market. Of course, other than that, there are other taxes. They could be like value-added tax or different taxes, but then in that case, they will apply evenly to the Colombian or to the Israeli manufacturer. When it comes to services, there is a service tax, but that's not part of the agreement. So the agreement does not refer to that. Service tax usually applies when a local service provider provides a service, or if it's a foreign service provider provides a service. So there are no exemptions neither for the local or the foreign service provider. What the agreement does in terms of services is, as I mentioned, is it provides more transparency and more predictability in terms of the regulatory framework. It doesn't refer to a specific tax on services that is exempted. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you, Daniel. And for the last questions on how the agreement can support the regulation process and importer license, would you like to answer that one, or should Juan give us the answer? Please, Juan.
Thank you, Sabine. Okay, the more important thing here is that this free trade agreement seems to be last generation agreement. There is something that is really nice just to know, because there are some chapters that are not included in other kind of free trade agreements. So one of the more important points regarding to this question is that for this kind of procedure, with the sanitary and phytosanitary measures, there are some special committees that could give any preferences, not preference, but Daniel, it's a kind of framework in order just to fast the procedure in order to obtain licenses and permissions. So, and there is an example, Sabine, here. For example, yesterday we were just discussing with some exporters from Colombia that they want to explore dairy products exportation options in Israel, even considering that the industry in Israel is really strong and is really good. The thing is that there are some special products that maybe from Colombia we can export even for kinder and child. And we were just discussing this with the Minister of Agriculture. And they said, thanks to Nir advice, that we could just start talking to the Food Security Institution of Authority of Israel. And in that sense, this free trade agreement is helping us in order just to help the exporter and the importer, in order just to clarify the questions, and then to help them in order just to have really fast procedures to obtain more advantages of these opportunities. I don't know, Daniel, if you want just to say something in there.
Yes, no, I think you. I think Juan, you answered well. For sure, as I mentioned, there is a dialogue between the governments, and then in such cases, when there is a request from the exporting party to the importing party, then there are better means to transmit those requests and to discuss them formally and informally. Yes.
Thank you all. I do believe we will stop with the questions and answers session. And if there is any one of the participants who still wishes to come with further questions, you are all welcome to turn to our panelists and reach to them directly. You have their coordinates, and I'm sure they will be more than happy to assist you and give you the right answers. And this is how we come to the end of this webinar. So first of all, I do hope it has been enriching for all of us. And of course, all the information, all the presentations that have been given here will be sent by Dana to all the participants. So that on top of that, I can tell you that this webinar, of course, has been recorded and will be sent to all of you. So thank you again for your participation. And for us here in Israel, we'll be celebrating the New Year's Eve next week. So our greetings for a happy new year and great success in your business. And we wish to see the bilateral trade between us and Colombia flourishing. And I'm sure that with your assistance, we will have the right guidance and we'll be able to do that. So thank you again. And thank you, Ambassador. You were really most helpful and your assistance is most valued. Thank you again to all of you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.